things to be aware of if they have their thyroid moved. They'll be very sensitive to stress and stress hormones. You get a part of your body taken out that regulates a huge amount of your ability to adapt to stress. You then replace one of the hormones and the body is left to adapt to stress. So we actually do a lot of things that are supportive for bone and bone marrow production with that. Things that are supportive to that. And there's a couple reasons why we did the vitamin C that we did. I will share with you that I have clients that have been with me for years and have never read the book. So I read the book to them all the time. I make little copies. I take pictures and text them stuff out of the book. They're just not going to do it. And that is completely okay. The other thing is I have clients that to this day, 10 years down the road, have that cup of coffee. It is really puts them at a hardship when we're working on things or they're stuck. Sometimes I negotiate that out for moments of time. But do not let any of that inhibit or intimidate you from being a tremendous impact in their lives. So those two things, I have clients that use the app diligently. And I literally had a client the other day said, "Oh my God, I didn't know you had a book that went with your app." Don't worry about it. It happens. I'm like, "You didn't know I had a book." That's okay. You missed the memo or our millionth email, but that's okay. So no, Lori, I did not give the answer to the water question yet, but I will. No worries. So just get in there and remember the do's and the don'ts of the fast metabolism diet. We're going to talk about in session 3, we're going to talk about the don'ts, right? They don't have to apply all of them to be successful, or they can gradually start layering them in to engage in their success. In a perfect world, we have 28 days where they're doing all of that. It's different in a clinical setting. They're there because they need support. They're investing in support. And so your support is the most valuable thing and 10 times more valuable than any rule written in any book, including the one that has my name on it. Okay. The next one, Lori, you asked this too, add servings. I'm going to assume nobody needs any more on that one. Add servings of vegetables, like in the one pan Mexican, how do I make it compliant? The chili mac, separate servings of veggies. How do we play with this? If a recipe isn't like, especially in the last cookbook, right? A lot of that's more for life recipes, but my gosh, just so you know, that cookbook is so friendly to people that don't want to follow a diet, but you want to give them food to cook from and say, "Hey, why don't you do this? 3 out of 7 nights. Why don't you make a meal from this cookbook? Let's start introducing you to some really healthy eating. Don't worry about the phases. Let's just get you to do that." That book is, I kind of selfishly wrote that book for myself clinically to be a godsend to give to people that I just got to start introducing healthy and natural eating in delicious, really easy ways to make it. If someone, and you'll find this clinically for years, people walk in with stacks of other people's diet books, other people's cookbooks. Don't be hurt or offended. I'm never hurt or offended by it, right? Recipes that they printed off from, Martha's website or Rachel's website or something like that. And the easiest way for me to modify that is I use the app a lot. So we'll go through and we'll say, okay, how do we make this a phase 1, phase 2, phase 3 diet appropriate? Where's my app? Here we go. I'll go in and it wants me to change to my time zone. I'll go in and I'll just go under the food list section. You guys should have your apps all loaded and ready to rock and roll. And we'll just find the appropriate vegetable for it. So let's say, for example, they're going to make, they bring you this delicious spaghetti recipe, right? And it's got, Italian sausage, or maybe it's got meatballs, and the meatballs has breadcrumb, and the pasta is not gluten-free. And they say, how can I make this for phase 2, right? That's the hardest modification. You're going to go through and we're going to say, okay, first, what can we use as an alternative pasta, an alternative grain that is appropriate for that phase. So maybe we use a zoodle, a zucchini noodle, or maybe the miracle noodles, or the noodles that are made out of that root. Those are phase 2. So we're going to say, okay, let's do this change. You're going to look at the herbs and spices. Those are going to be fine. You're going to look at the pasta sauce, or you're going to look at the meatball breadcrumbs. You're going to take out the breadcrumbs. Maybe you're going to go to your veggie and go, what could I make it that would look like breadcrumbs? And so, for example, you're going to go to phase 2. You're going to hit here into vegetables, and you're going to say, okay, let's see. Maybe if I puree cabbage cooked can really help hold those together. Maybe I add some green chili for spice. Maybe I add leeks to have a pepper flavor. Maybe I puree some bell peppers to make my meatballs. Maybe I do the garden meatballs that are in the recipe, right? How can I, let me see, QRST, how can I make that appropriate for that particular phase? So any of the recipes that are in the books, in the cookbook, the last cookbook, is not phase specific. So all you have to do is find that food group, that particular phase food, and modify that with your client. If it's a totally random recipe like mac and cheese that is, again, gluten laden with dairy, you can look, I suggest you go to our website, type in the search feature, some key elements. So you can put macaroni, mac, cheese. It's good. It's not perfect in finding recipes. Also in the member section, remember, you can search it by an ingredient in the member section, and all you guys have recipes. Okay. Do you do all that recipe substituting with them so they can learn how to do that between sessions, or send it to them? That's a great question. So Megan asked, do I do that during the session, or do I send it to them? So in my personal practice, and I'm more than happy to share this with you guys, I have 3 different client scales. I have clients that pay me for a 1 visit, or maybe they come many times, but our transaction is pretty much done after the visit. So let's say they book an hour with me. I knock it out of the park for that hour, and anything they need, they make a follow-up appointment. I have clients that have a visit with me, and then they book phone or text or other sessions. I'll email, once or twice. Sometimes I do have support team that will help, but for the most part, the session's open, the session's closed, and that's the end of it. If they say, can we do recipes? Can we do this? Can we do that? And then we just say, let's really quick make a list of what we want to do next appointment. Let's get you scheduled next week or next month. And they say, but I need help with recipes. Let's schedule a whole recipe session. No problem. And you can do that. The thing that you guys, I feel, are really fortunate to have is when I started practice, when I was where you were at, there was no books about this, right? So you have the first recipe book, which has it segmented into phase 1, 2, or 3. So you can take that book with that client, or in the Fast Metabolism Diet, there's however many recipes in that. And you can go through together and you can highlight the recipes that they like. If they want to bring something to the table and you're starting out, my personal opinion is I would stick to the membership section, which they can search. I would stick to the open website where you can search keywords. I don't find it as easy, just so you know, or I would stick to one of the published books. It's going to make your life a lot easier. I also have clients that have me on an annual retainer. The annual retainer clients, I don't bill them ever for anything. We just take care of what needs to be taken care of, right? I also have clients that I travel with. The clients that I travel with, I will meet with their chef. I will gut their pantry. I will open the ice cream in their freezer and put hot water over the top of it. It depends on what the service that I'm providing. As a coach, as when I sit in my coach's seat and I'm sitting in the same seat as you guys, I'm trying to be very diligent about starting a visit, ending a visit, and planning for our next visit. And if they say, I have people coming, I am traveling, it is very common for me to schedule a traveling meeting. And we literally prepare them to go on their trip in a 1-hour meeting. I have clients that go on a boat every year on a yacht for a month. They have, they go to the Italy and Capri and Amalfi Coast. This year, they're going to go to Greece 2 weeks before, come home, and then go on the boat for a month. They have, I think there's 8 couples that come on and off the boat. 6 of those couples are also clients of mine. So I coordinate all the food. They all have different preferences ahead of time and put together a whole book for the chefs that are on the cruise. We have several coaching sessions around being prepared for this trip. So it's not, you can dedicate that time to getting them whatever support they need, but make sure that you put it within the confinements of a visit. Otherwise, it's really hard to do a good job. We all have distractions in our lives. We all have complex obligations in our lives. And so I always say, look, I want to give you an hour. So let's do that. And it's your time and let's do it. So to answer your question, I really try to keep it in that. Again, for me, it's I'm in better service of them because I'm easily distracted. Okay, so let's jump on to the next question, which is the water question that we talked about. So basically, there's a spot where water comes out of the mountain, people collecting it from drinking water. Does it qualify as spring water? Typically, that's considered, it probably comes from an aquifer if it doesn't come from a spring. And yes, artisan water, yes. That is typically very good from an electrolyte perspective. So, someone asked us about water testing. We're going to put that in a resource page. There is a lot of good companies that test water. I've been to water seminars. You can get as deep as you want with any of these subjects. In my opinion, as a clinician and as a coach right now, starting out, I would encourage spring water, artisan water, water from an aquifer. There are even some well waters that are aquifer derived that have a very good electrolyte balance. It's hard. And we just got the news or some recent news about, I tell you guys a lot that I like Arrowhead seems to test well. Unfortunately, they're doing reverse osmosis now with the Arrowhead spring and remineralizing Arrowhead water. So that's a new one that I'm a little bit heartbroken about. You guys know I'm an advocate for Fiji, for Volvic, for Icelandic. I have aquifers on my property. I have my aquifers tested, my well tested, and water's frustrating. So Donna, you asked me about the pH of water. So Donna asked, so is the pH, is or isn't the pH important of your water that you consume? I will say that it depends on how the pH was manipulated. So typically most spring water that's from an aquifer, water that's artisan, typically maintains a pretty stable pH. The issue that I have is when there are these waters that are either fortified with electrolytes and or fortified with chlorinated minerals to manipulate the pH, that it can cause a problem. I really caution you as a practitioner, if your clients are big into that you study the pH testing protocol that is free to you guys that you can use, and the Lemon Challenge protocol, and make sure that there's no stability issues that are there. So I don't know how many of you are familiar with that. You don't have to be, have a master's in water purification to start coaching, but you are going to get exposed to a lot of clients that have read a lot about the different waters. Turn the bottle around. My sister is staying at my home right now, and she brought cases of this water that I said, don't even put it in my pool, and she probably paid a lot of money for it. I have a saltwater pool that I'm very cautious about how I maintain it. Okay. So there is some technical questions about the app that came up. I just wanted to tell you guys we're going to post that again in the Facebook group. We have an app support team, like a customer service support team. So I'm just going to let you guys let them technical work through that, so you guys don't waste my brain on that. Okay. So Donna asked, she sees a common concern in a lot of the Facebook group is people frustrated by gaining in phase 3. There's some really cool biochemistry reasons for that. Besides cutting optional grain or doing only 2 days of phase 3, do you have any other suggestions to keep the scale moving in phase 3? So there's a couple things that we do in phase 3 when we have weight gain. And basically, the bulk of what's happening, I'm going to generalize a little bit, is that a person's having a difficult time metabolizing fats while they're metabolizing a complex carb. And there's certain metabolic pathways that are more activated when you're metabolizing or breaking down fats, like almonds, versus when you're breaking down a complex carb, like brown rice. And there's competitive enzymes that are secreted when those are consumed in conjunction. So there's a couple tricks that we've done clinically when people get stuck, and I'm going to go through about 3 of those. The first is playing with hormone metabolism in phase 3. And you can do this 2 ways. You can either replace phase 3 for a week or 2 with an H burn. So you would go to the H burn program and you would say, okay, I can understand what's happening and I want to nurture a little area of the body that can be an ally in getting your body to be able to metabolize both complex carbs and healthy fatty acids. And the goal is to restore the enzyme secretion to a status where the body can actually achieve that. Remember, or if this is new, our enzymes and our hormones are very similar. The enzymes are technically a class of hormones. In Metabolism Essentials course, I do a whole section on enzymes and hormones, if you guys want to kind of delve into that a little bit further. But the goal is to heal the metabolism or tease out the secretions in particular areas so that the body can achieve that task. So that's one option that you can do, is chart that, introduce them to the H burn, say, look, there's a way that we can kind of take those 3 days and be very therapeutic. It's not often, Donna, that I will reduce phase 3 to 2 days. I will never say never, but I will only sometimes do that when we're really pressed for weight loss. So I will use the example, I had an individual that needed knee surgery and we had to get 27 pounds down quickly in order for them to be approved through their insurance company. Had somebody getting ready for a photo shoot, right? Things like that. So I try really hard not to do that, because the long-term goal is to heal the enzyme secretion and wash the hormone receptor sites so that the body can secrete enzymes, they can bind to the receptor sites, and the body can take up those fats and those complex carbs, and it can actually burn them for energy. So that's the first one. You would replace the H burn in days 5, 6, and 7 of the week. Okay. I usually don't do that more than 2 weeks in a row before I try to reintroduce. And if it doesn't work, that's okay. We'll do and I say stick with it for the full 3 days. We've got to challenge the body and we've got to give the body this opportunity. The other things that I'll do is I will add a vegetable in the snacks. So a veggie and a healthy fat, if they're already doing that. For example, they're doing celery and almond butter. They're doing bell pepper and tuna. They're doing avocado and cucumbers. Check that though, right? And then the third thing is I will sometimes move the complex carb out of dinner and I will add it 2 hours after dinner. Sometimes giving the body the break between consuming, giving the gallbladder, if we don't have a gallbladder, right, we're still trying to get enough. So just, and you guys, don't hesitate to raise your hands or ask questions. I don't want to go over anybody's head. I don't want to go under anybody's anything, right? So our gallbladder houses a lot of the bile salts, the lecithin, the phosphoric acids, the things that help to emulsify fats, and it's then secreted into the small intestine when our body consumes fat-based foods. When we don't have a gallbladder, it doesn't mean that we don't still produce those. Those are just bypassed and leaked chronically into the small intestine very regularly, which is why you'll see a lot of clients that have a gallbladder removed, and you'll see a lot of SIBO or small intestine bacterial overgrowth. So sometimes by breaking that complex carbohydrate out of dinner, giving the body an opportunity to kind of really get the gallbladder juices going and the secretion into the small intestine a little bit more appropriate, and then upregulating the enzyme production, that can be a really good help. The third one is, if you're seeing that consistently, we typically suspect some sort of heavy metal toxicity. Some sort of, it could be a mycotoxin. We can see it with petrochemicals. We just ran a bunch of chemical assays on a client recently, and in our environmental medicine department, and we found a chemical that's associated with fuel additives in their car. It's so bizarre because it's only in super high sports performance cars. And I'm like, you don't have a Ferrari, do you? And they kind of giggled. And I said, well, that's why you don't lose weight in phase 3. You need to give me your Ferrari and all will be well. No, I'm just kidding. But sincerely, there was a lot of exposure to this one particular kind of metal-based petrochemical. And we could not get the body to emulsify fat efficiently because there was metal-based toxins that the body didn't want to release. So a lot of times I will take that person and I will add into their program a heavy metal cleanse, and I will usually do that heavy metal cleanse for a full 2 weeks. So we've got the hormone piece, we've got the potential for chemical toxin piece that can create a disharmony. We also do have the individual that truly has some aspects of insulin resistance. So we use that term very loosely, but the client that walks in and, keep a straight face, don't hide under the table when this happens, but your PCOS client, right? Which is polycystic ovarian syndrome. It's one of the most difficult cases with insulin resistance. It's just a really tough one. I will say Hashimoto's thyroiditis is a close second, because both of those types of disorders have a tendency to gum up the hormone receptor sites. So you almost have to have some extremes, when we call confuse it to lose it, with those people, where you want to make sure that they're not repeating, and usually the insult is in the vegetable category. So with PCOS, with Hashimoto's thyroiditis, or with an individual that's having a difficult time losing weight with those combinations of foods, you want to take some time and say, look, we want to apply some food rotation philosophies with you. How you do that is you look at phase 1, 2, and 3. My favorite category to take, I will first start with the veggies. I will then start with the proteins. So make sure they're not doing chicken, right? Or they're not doing beef. So we'll pull some of the exotic meats. I'll be like, look, hey, we got to pull in some lamb. We got to pull in some elk. We got to do something different here, because we have to get the amino acid ratios different. We got to get the phytonutrients different. And you want to make drastic changes in the phases with their vegetables and their proteins. We could talk about phase 3 we need to do a phase 3 course, because there's a lot to do. I hope that gives you guys some tools to at least start applying. Okay, great. Questions that pertain to this. Megan asked which part of the H-Burn program, the 3-day or the 4-day. So the H burn, actually, if you grab the book, it runs a full 10 days. The I burn is 3 days. The D burn is 5 days, and the H burn is 10 days. But you would take that program and you would apply it for 3 days in phase 3 of the Fast Metabolism Diet. And it's a great tool to help with receptor sites. Metabolism dim is also another great one if you suspect any hormone. So, it's got a lot of turmeric, a lot of black pepper, and the dim in that product is amazing. And we've used a lot of different variations of the theme. So individuals that have a shift in hair growth, so they're thin hair and they're thick hair, right? Individuals that notice what we call around the bra area of weight gain, across the pubic symphysis, or the pubic bone of weight gain, and phase 3 becomes an issue. I'm like, okay, let's do the H burn. Let's add a little bit of dim, and usually we can shift it. With the metals, if you don't do a heavy metal cleanse, you can apply just the metabolism metals. Things that I want you to think and be aware of that is you have to make sure the bowel, be really sure that you have a consistent bowel movement with that client. Because when you bind fat soluble toxins in the form of metals, and I have clients that need flat bellies for the swimsuit issue, right? Every single one of them takes metabolism metals. They want me to rename it to shrink the skin on the belly. Any area that you're storing fat soluble toxins, metabolism metal is a great trick. A lot of my, I have a lot of colleagues that do weight loss with some crazy protocols, and they don't apply any of my nutrition stuff, but they use my metabolism metals. I'm like, so anyway, okay. If the client's a super slow loser, do we assume that it's a phase 3 issue, or are there other things we should know? Yes. Okay. No, you don't assume it's a phase 3 issue. Ask this question for next session, because we want to talk about phase 1 and 2 and just overall individuals that are slow losers. Okay. Sound good? Fatty acids are helpful in phase 3 weight gain. Yes, they can be very helpful in phase 3 weight gain. Weight loss, excuse me. Because of the way that phase 1, the omega-3, 6, and 9s are regulated, they're designed, I'll tell you, when I developed that formula, it was designed more for the fertility world to help regulate prostaglandins when individuals were being given stims or stimulation, gonadotropic stimulators to promote ovulation and implantation. In the sheep world, when we're trying to get twins, there was a lot of research, and I was working on a project. There's a lot more money when you get twins versus you get a singular lamb. That's where this came from, guys, just so you know. So we worked really hard to get that ratio right, and where we import it from, it's really hard to get clean fatty acids when we're regulating when we have an individual that has hormone dysfunction. You have to be very careful with fish oils. If you don't have hormone dysfunction, or you're a man, take fish oils till the cows come home. If you have any hormone dysfunction with a client and they're on a fish oil, back away from the fish oil, or it's going to be difficult to get them out of an inflammatory state. And we see this with C-reactive protein, with elevated homocysteine all the time clinically. We have women that are on fish oil and we just cringe. When you say extreme veggie and protein rotation, PCOS, Hashimoto's, does that mean not repeating from week to week? How extreme? So usually we say no more than every 3 days to start with the veggies. So when I talk about rotating the veggies, so if they do broccoli in phase 1, we don't do broccoli again until phase 3. PCOS and Hashimoto's thyroiditis, sometimes I will try to do, if I have a person that has an eclectic palate, I will, especially with Hashimoto's thyroiditis, I will rotate my vegetables so that we don't do, I say we have 7 veggies, that we don't do the same of. So I am a chronic onion and mushroom eater. I'm like, oh, it's time to make a phase 1 shake. Shoot, I wish I could put mushrooms in it. I'll throw them in anything. I'm going to make cacao nibs, truffles. Why don't we put some onions in it? And so when I feel, those of you that have an autoimmune disorder, we call it fear of the flare, right? When something happens and I have fear of the flare, I will start to rotate my food. So I went on a fishing trip. I fish a lot. We were deep sea fishing. I was catching massive fish, had the pull in my groin. I went back to my hotel room and on day 3, and I was bruised. And I thought, oh my gosh, my platelets are down and, probably only going to make it till tomorrow, because that's what us folks with autoimmune disorders do from time to time. And, turns out everybody on the boat was bruised. I was okay. But the first thing that I started doing was like going through my app going, okay, I've been eating onions every day, so it really does help those inflammatory receptor sites if you can change the phytonutrients a lot. And again, we run labs every 5 minutes. So we can see the change that actually happens in the blood with that. When should we start working on our 100 clinical hour goal? After module 1, don't feel prepared to complete an intake. We'll not learn how to actually plan our coaching sessions until module 9, or will the clinical application videos in the next modules begin to help us with coaching framework? Every module kind of builds on it. Module 1, we had Sue Cook, and I just wanted to talk about like her experiences being a clinician, being a coach. Module 2, you guys want to just hold your hands up, anybody that's watched the module 2 clinical video. So in that video, Holly, we talked about the dues, and you guys saw how we negotiated out, and I let her talk me into a 4th one. But no pressure, right? You can start as soon as you want. You can start just with friends and family members of just like, hey, what can I talk you into doing positive for your health today? I've got this list of 10 things, will you sit down and talk with me? Let's set a timer for 15 minutes or an hour or whatever. Will you talk through these with me? And I want to hear, it's really good to hear people's fears and objections and concerns and really, like I said, their fears. There's a lot tied up around food and health. And so use a lot of like, you're going to love this. This is going to be so good for you. This is going to make you so happy. A little tip, I saw Holly putting lotion on her hands when she was getting ready to go on for her thing. And I just made this is called neuro mirroring. I don't know if any of you have ever taken any neuropsychology classes. Neuro mirroring is why if I yawn, some of you guys are going to yawn, right? We mirror each other, and mirroring each other is a way of feeling heard and feeling identified. And so you'll notice in that module, I talked about, I want a little bit of self-massage. Why don't you put some lotion on your hands and rub it just a little bit more and a little bit deeper. So I was mirroring back to her something that she already places value in. So be perceptive of that. If you have a client that's superstitious, talk about that they're 10 times luckier throwing sea salt over their shoulder than they are throwing iodized salt, table salt, or, meet people where they're at. Okay. So let me just I'm going to try and crank through a couple ones. So to answer your question, start whenever you're ready, but you cannot start too soon. You can literally spend part of your 100 hours having 5 of your friends load the app and go through the app with them. That is a phenomenal exercise, because the app, you say, hey, do me a favor. This is a great thing, so you get used to this. Will you track your water for the next week and email it to me, export it and email it to me, so that you become familiar with that process, okay? And if you have clients, if you say, look, hey, I want you to do your meal map. We're not going to meet for 4 weeks, but email it to me. Doesn't mean you have to review it. Print it out and say, I'm going to print it out. We're going to go over it the next visit, okay? Maintenance. Lisa Boo just asked about maintenance. And she said, all these years, it's very difficult. I'm going to distill this down. What the heck? I can't get maintenance. If you guys don't have the Metabolism Revolution book, the second half of that book is Fast Metabolism for Life. And it sets up maintenance protocols. I don't want to bombard you. If you are feeling frisky, if you are feeling fancy, if you are bored and you cannot sleep, those are protocols that you can actually reversed in the Fast Metabolism Diet into someone's, the very first question, which was, they don't want to give up coffee and they don't want to read the book. You can actually use some of those protocols to reverse engineer in for a client that isn't ready to do the Fast Metabolism Diet. So grab that section and use those philosophies or those concepts. There's ones where you can do phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. There's ones where you can do a week of F&D. I have clients that do a 5-day cleanse once a month. I have clients that do a 10-day cleanse once a month. There's ways to get maintenance. The other thing is, the reason why I wrote that last cookbook was because a lot of people were saying, okay, I'm where I'm at, or I'm where I want to stop right now. How can I just eat healthy? And so that's a really good, you just can grab that cookbook. Okay, we've got a couple more questions I want to try to knock out. We got started a few minutes late, so let's see. Linda Burke, you asked a great question. Do I ever encourage clients to consider vegetarian or vegan? Or if they have certain issues, restrictions they already follow, is it not a healthy choice? Just curious. I don't think I would just tell you, in my 20-something years, 26 years of clinical practice, I don't think I've ever said to somebody, you should be vegan. It's quite the opposite. I have someone says, I'm vegan, or I'm hired. I shouldn't say this. I was hired on a job one time by a diehard vegan that was filming a movie, and they were using craft services. There was so much animal product in that food. I just, I was like, really? Let's clean this up. Do I think veganism and vegetarianism is healthy? I think done right, any food philosophy can be healthy. I have concern about soy in our country. It's very concerning to me, and it's very concerning what we see clinically with it. So I'm not a huge advocate for soy. If soy is fermented, it seems to have a lot less effect in the body. There are, one of the reasons why I put, when I was formulating the Fast Metabolism Shake, is there are very few vegan foods that are complete in their essential amino acids. So amino acids are building blocks for protein, right? And we have PVTT9, PVTTIMHLL. We have amino acids that have to come into our diet. The bulk of those come in through animal products. I shouldn't say the bulk of them. Two of our rate-limiting amino acids come in from animal products. So it's easier, in theory, for a person that's not vegan to get a complex array of amino acids. Doesn't mean it's not possible. One of the best ways to get a complete protein in a vegan plan is adding spirulina. And so spirulina is, I add a very high quality, very expensive raw ingredient of spirulina into our metabolism shake for that reason, to allow, because that is a vegan shake, but to allow a complete protein. Now, there are many vegan shakes on the market that you will see taurine is added. That is the amino acid that's most difficult. The issue is there's some debate on whether they should be labeled vegan or not, because they are cultured on chicken feathers. So you have to be very careful with vegan proteins. There's a lot of vegan proteins out there, especially the pea-based proteins, that can be extremely pro-inflammatory because they have, if a person has allergies, or autoimmune because they have some remnants there. So I have a client with no thyroid, would like to hear what F&D adjustments she can make to help her. So Kimberly, this is a great question. Typically, if there's been a full thyroid resection, things that are important to know is if the parathyroid, so sometimes they'll remove part of the thyroid, a lobe of the thyroid. If there's a full resection, they usually are missing what they call the parathyroid too. So our thyroid is this gland, it looks like a butterfly. There's little dots on the back of it called the parathyroid that regulate a lot of adrenal and stress hormones, as well as a lot of bone issues with bone density. And sometimes you'll see neutropenia or a low neutrophil count with a person that's in full thyroid restriction. You want to think with those people, They have a replacement therapy. They're usually on with a full thyroid. You hope that their endocrinologist has them on a T4 and a T3. So you want to just talk to them, are you on both of the major thyroid hormones? If they're only on one, which is what we see sometimes in cases where they're not with a great practitioner, they'll be on a levothyroxine or a Synthroid without a T3, which is Cytomel, excuse me. So when a person has low thyroid, they can get away with having usually just a T4. When a person has a thyroid gone, you'll find it very hard for them if they don't have both T4 and T3 replaced. Even with hypothyroidism, I like to have T4 and T3 replaced personally. That's my personal opinion, but it's darn hard if a person's had their thyroid removed. Things to be aware of if they have their thyroid moved, they'll be very sensitive to stress and stress hormones. Again, we think a lot of our adrenals as responsible for our adaptogenic or our hormones that we adapt to, but really our bone and bone marrow plays a very significant role. And with the full thyroid resection, we've lost our parathyroid, which regulates a hormone called thyrocalcitonin. So Pam, I'm going to say it in what I call pencils and crayons language. You get a part of your body taken out that regulates a huge amount of your ability to adapt to stress. You then replace one of the hormones and the body is left to adapt to stress. So we actually do a lot of things that are supportive for bone and bone marrow production with that. Things that are supportive to that. And there's a couple reasons why we did the vitamin C that we did. It's hard to get a vitamin C in this country that's not corn derived. It's either beet or tapioca derived. It's very difficult. That's the first hard thing. It's also hard to get a vitamin C that's in a potency and an absorbability that can actually affect bone marrow, and corticotrophic hormones. So we did not develop that or work on the development with that for commercial distribution. We actually developed that for our client base that has either a missing thyroid, a missing adrenal, or Paget's disease, or hyperosteopenia or osteoporosis. It's a great vitamin C. It's just awfully expensive to be. I mean, I pound it and drink it all the time, and I cringe at the money that I spend on myself for my health. I don't know what else to say. It was a great replacement for those clients that we were only successful in getting them built back up with IV infusions of beet-derived vitamin C, minimally 5 grams. So if you have an individual that's super, super stressed, super, super depleted, is losing bone density, can't cope from an adaptogenic perspective, and you can't get any other nutrient in them, supplement, they can't, the list starts getting big. Sometimes that's our layering in to get their adaptogenic hormones stabilized. The other thing is we have in the phase 1 shake, there's quite a bit of sun-theanine. There's also sun-theanine in the metabolism control. Probably needs to have a different name and a different label, just to be totally honest with you guys. The sun-theanine is an adaptogenic amino acid, that particular patented form of theanine. So theanine is really hot and trendy right now. Sun-theanine, that raw ingredient that we purchase, is very well researched and studied for its adaptogenic capabilities. So again, if you got a person that's wiped out, tapped out, losing bone density, we call it tired and wired, spooks easily, just get a little bit of vitamin C in them, which it's 3,000 per shot. So that's not a little bit of, but get some vitamin C in them. I have a client right now that there was a health crisis situation, and we were doing 4 packets a day. We did to bowel tolerance, and that's how much she needed it. She had a huge flare in an autoimmune disorder that attacks the connective tissue. And in that case, we do vitamin C to bowel tolerance, which means you take it and you get the runs, you've had enough vitamin C. That's how you know. We were up to 4 packets a day, which is 12,000 IUs of vitamin C. Most of us will get diarrhea after 1 to 2 packets. And then that just goes to show you how much adaptogenic hormone support she needed with that. So the other thing, I'm going to just wrap this up, guys. Sorry, I get a little long-winded. The other thing, when you're dealing with anybody that has, they're taking a synthetic thyroid hormone, is helping their body to convert it into T3 adequately. You want to ask their practitioner that's prescribing it, it's okay to take the T4, T3, but both the Google steroids and the ashwagandha are very, very nurturing for adaptogenic hormones. And what you don't want to do is take something that's going to stim the thyroid, that's going to burn the thyroid hormones that are being added, because they don't have any tissue residual left with a thyroid resection. You're going to get a lot of people, you guys, that are on thyroid meds, that are on hypothyroid. You're just going to. It obviously affects weight and weight gain. And I would say DIM and T4, T3 can be a really powerful combination in helping the receptor sites recognize what they're being given. If you're playing in that field, and you probably will be, always encourage a conversation with their physician, and welcome it. Don't, I've been doing this a long time, and I cannot tell you how many docs worship the quicksand I walked upon, when I first started, right? Because I was going, but wait a minute, I was considered alternative medicine. Nutrition was alternative medicine back in the day. And, I was telling people that were being told by their doctor to stay off all fatty foods by their cardiologist. And I was saying, wait, I want you to have raw pistachios, and I want you to have full fat cottage cheese, right? And so now I'm sitting here because they're wanting me to put in an integrative medicine clinic. It's a little different game. So you guys are coming in at a really great time where people are embracing nutrition and embracing nutrition philosophies. And if a person's, had a disease state where they need to have the thyroid removed, they're going to need a lot of nutritional support. I want to add one more thing. When we talk about thyroid, guys, just remember that the same part of the body that takes cholesterol and makes all of our sex hormones, there's within the liver, there is an area that also helps convert T4 into T3. And just so you know, when we say T4, that's thyroid hormone that has 4 iodine molecules on it. And T3 means we've cleaved an iodine molecule so that this 3-plugged prong can fit into the receptor site. So T4 is not really active. They give T4s in hopes, usually therapeutically, in hopes that the body will successfully cleave the T3 and the right bond angle, because it won't fit if they cleave it here, and they won't fit if they cleave it here, it won't fit if it cleaves it here. They'll hope that it binds to the receptor sites. The reason why docs started not giving or don't give T3 as freely or as liberally is because it's already active and it can bind to receptor sites. And so they worry more about putting a person into hyperthyroid issue. It's just you have to be a little more savvy to prescribe it, but it doesn't mean we shouldn't prescribe the right thing because you don't feel savvy, right? Thyroid patients, first thing in the morning, required to wait 1 hour to eat. Couple things, ask them to talk to their doc about taking it right before bed. Most of my clients, their docs are totally cool with that. Thyroid medication does not wake you up or stimulate your energy. You wish, we all wish. Actually, many of my clients that have edema, many of my clients that have congestive heart failure, that have swelling around the ankles, when we work with their cardiologist, most of the docs have them take it right before bed. So that's a great thing. The other thing is, if their endocrinologist, their doc is hell-bent on them taking it first thing in the morning, what we do is I say, please put it next to your bed with your water. And the second your alarm goes off, let's get the clocks start ticking and take it, and ask your doctor if 45 minutes would work. There's not a lot of binding that happens after 15 minutes, depending on if they're taking synthetic Synthroid or their levothyroxine, or if they're taking something compounded like an Armour or Natrithroid or something like that. The synthetics actually have less tendency to bind with metals and minerals, and the naturally compounded actually have a little bit more of a tendency to. So, but again, you can always pull some published papers and what we call white papers and send them off to their doctor with those published papers, and ask. I'm a big ask hole. Don't forget to ask. Okay. Good meeting, guys. I hope this is helpful. Please feel like you can watch it a million times. This is the kind of stuff we want to talk about, but I want to just encourage you guys to know that it took me 27 years this May, to figure some of this out. And I am trying to figure all of it out on a daily. So don't have any and you guys are so lucky that you have a structure to lean back on, a community to lean back on. I was, seeing clients. I got dumped into a practice. I was interning. I did 1,500 clinical hours, without pay, although they were charging. There was a crisis with a family in the clinic that I got dumped into clients, and I was literally looking up, we didn't have internet very much back then. We had to pay per minute for internet. And so I was looking up stuff in books daily all the time. And I have 5 books around me. I have a biochemistry of the metabolism book. I'm trying to figure something out today. So just go for it. It's going to be awesome. You guys are doing great. I'm so excited that we have you, and my team's here for you. I'm here for you, and I'm going to go to bed.